Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Monday night edition of Lads It's Tottenham. Talking about Everton game tonight, reaction to the Everton game, and a little bit of transfer talk. I'm hosting. You got me. Unfortunately, not Caller or Jack. So we've had to get HG in to make some sense of it all. So HG, how are you this evening, mate? All right?
I'm happier to see you than I am to see Caller.
Don't be like that.
I haven't seen John in a while, but Caller's had a good day in London, I think, with his family, so he's off tonight. But it's good to see you and good to see everyone again back on the show. I feel like we spent a very long time off over the summer, and it's good to talk Spurs again.
Yeah, well, obviously back here to talk Spurs, mate. Good win at the weekend, which we're all happy about, but we'll dissect it. How good was the win, really?
4-0.
What's
it was
mean for the future?
4-0.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm just trying to say, yeah, winning 4-0 is always good. Obviously, a win's a win. But we haven't got all the fancy slides tonight, HG, because obviously I've been working on the show today, so we're not going to get slides. So we'll just get straight into the starting 11, mate. When that starting 11 came up, I was shocked. I thought we were going to have pretty much the same as what we had against Leicester, obviously bar Bentancur. What did you think?
Yeah, I was also pretty shocked. I think we had a chat in our little WhatsApp group beforehand, and I mentioned that there was a balls to the wall option. I didn't think Son was going to play down the middle. That was the thing that probably surprised me the most. But we still went, all out attack. Frankly, I mean, I saw someone say yesterday that Spurs ended up playing a 2-1-7 formation, but it really felt like that at times, and it was good to see at home the kind of the club's motto of "to dare is to do." It was nice to see it because we were all shocked that we thought it would be a bit more defensive and a bit more worried about what Everton could actually do.
Yeah, I mean, Odegaard coming in for his debut, I didn't see that happening. I thought we'd have a bit of probably Sarr in there, but I'm glad Kulusevski played in the middle. He was good, but Everton, we thought they were going to sit back. We sort of had a chat about this before. They did sit back, but we sort of took them even further back, didn't we? We sort of we managed to play around that sort of deep defending that we usually struggle against, didn't we? So, and do you think just having extra attacking bodies made that happen?
I mean, I think it's interesting that maybe I'm wrong with the time frame, but I think last year we played Everton and we beat them, but we may not have deserved it. I think we got a couple of goals early on, and then Everton pretty much dominated the rest of the game and maybe could have got an equaliser. And so we know that they're not bad. I mean, they drew 2-2 with us at Goodison in the second half of the season, and they are that kind of team is a bit like Spurs' kryptonite. They don't come out, and they do make it difficult for you. But you're right, as much as they were playing there, I mean, to be fair, I'm not even sure it was a low block. I think they tried to defend a bit higher up the pitch, but once we'd kind of dominated the ball early on, they did retreat, and it got to the point where, if you think about the first goal, I mean, Kulusevski's got the ball and he's inside the 18-yard box, and there's at least one line of defence between, maybe even two. And so when you've got 9 or 10 players in the 18-yard box defending, it's it's obvious that people like Bissouma or whoever's on the edge of the box are going to have a lot of space, and thankfully we took advantage. But I feel like by playing so many people that want to be high up the pitch, we did kind of force the issue. We said that you can probably get some chances on the counter, but we trust our defenders to be better than your attackers, and we think that that we'll create chances this way. So I don't know how often we'll see it, but I'd like to think that in home games especially, this might be something that comes more to the fore, that we see a very attacking, let's say, front five.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think, especially against the poorer teams or the teams who we deem are poorer than us, and we're going to have more of the board. And the other thing about that, HG, as well, is Bissouma's hit that from the edge of the area. There's a lot of times where that ball could have come to him, and he won't do that. He'll take a touch and he'll look to recycle it out wide again. And Son had a shot before that which deflected and went over. So not only were we doing that, it looked like we had the intent to let's go out there and get a goal. And if we've got to shoot from distance, which is something we're far more reluctant to do than we have been for a long time, we had that intent as well, didn't we? So that's good to see. But that is from Bissouma. That is an hell of a strike. Nobody's saving that. That was
Exactly. I mean,
top
you're
draw.
yeah. Those shots from distance are something that makes us a more dangerous team. Weirdly enough, if Son is playing as the 9, which he was, for him to be on the edge of the box, waiting for the opportunity for the space to be open so that he could shoot, that's what we want. Don't really trust Madison to do it, frankly. There are some players that are willing to take more of a risk and shoot from distance. So it is good. Yeah, I feel like there's obviously progression in the fact that, by playing Odobert, we had someone down the wing who was willing to go to the byline, was willing to, and was capable of controlling the ball in tight areas. And I played defense when I was a boy and when I was a young man, and the one thing you don't want to be is kind of next to someone who can make you look stupid. Those players that have really good close control and can get round you in a couple of touches. Spurs haven't had a player like that in a while, because even Sonny doesn't want to be that kind of player. It's a bit. He's definitely a striker that plays on the wing rather than someone who likes tight spaces and can work in them. So that clearly helps Spurs as well. And it's nice to sit here and say that we've done something good and we got the rewards for it, because we did make the changes, and I feel like we made changes that were necessary, and we were worthy 3 points in the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to go overboard on Odobert yet. I thought he came in, but like you're saying, what also that does is when a player even takes one man on, if he gets past him, it draws another player out of position, doesn't it? Because you can't just let somebody have a free run at your goal or a free run to the byline to get a cross in. So what did you think of his performance? Because I was shocked he started. I'm glad he started. But, what did you think of his overall performance?
I mean, obviously, I was excited. I wanted to see a player like that for a long time. I think early on, he got the crowd on his side by showing that he was capable, and that was a big thing, right? Like you don't necessarily want players to play it safe early on. As much as it might seem the logical thing for them, he's in a team to be unpredictable. That's what he brings us. We don't really have much outside of that, and as you said, the ability to beat someone creates chances for other people, maybe 4 or 5 passes later. It doesn't need to be straight away. So I was really happy. I mean, he's still only 19. He's a kid, but I feel like he will be a massive part of Spurs over the next 2 or 3 years. And if he develops and if he provides more of a goal threat, and I think he's got it in him to make his decision maker better and to score those goals, then we'll have a hell of a player. But yeah, for a first game, you can't be upset with what Odobert provided, because he went off. We were 2-0 up, and the game was basically done.
Yeah, I mean, like, go on to the second goal now. Like, I've not been critical of Son. I think Son's fantastic. I love Son. He's a legend at the club. But we're not going to get the same Son as we used to get. But like closing down Pickford like that, I mean, that is great energy. I just think we'll talk about the goal, HG, but how do we, like you saw Odobert on the left, and Son isn't going to do that. We know we don't really want him as a centre forward. So how do we work this team? What do we do to get the best out of Son? Because Son's an elite finisher. He's not the Son of a few years ago. He doesn't. I think he's still quick enough to do it, but he just seems reluctant to take on his man as much now. So how do we play it to get the best out of him? Because finishing wise, he is the best finisher by a mile at the club, I believe.
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like last season, playing him as a 9 didn't work because we weren't really able to dominate in those areas, and he had to hold the ball up, which is not his thing. We saw on Saturday, he played the 9 and scored twice and was pretty much a threat because there were other players in and around him, and he could drop out. Like there were various times when Kulusevski was the 9, even Brendan Johnson moved inside. Like we were being flexible, and when we saw, the desk of Dele and Eriksson and Son and Kane, like that's when they were at their best, when they all kind of swapped positions.
Yeah.
So I know it's only one game, but I think Son is, he may well play a number of games as the 9. At home games against the weaker teams, you may well see it because he is the best finisher at the club, and we have options to play out wide. Like there will be occasions, I'm sure, when Richarlison is a better option or Solanke is a better option, but when you've seen Solanke and his ability to hold the ball up and run with the ball, well, you're not going to need that at home against the weaker teams. So I think that Son will still be the main. I mean, say still be. He is the main man now. Like Kane's gone, and it's kind of on Son's shoulders. And 17 goals last year wasn't terrible. Most of them, or a lot of them, were against the bigger teams. So if we found a system that can get him goals against the weaker ones, then we're going to be laughing because the quality is there with Son. Like I know people talk about, when's the right time to move him on. There isn't going to be one. There isn't going to be one.
We won't replace him, will we?
No, but it's not even that. But let's say he stays until he's what? I mean, he's 32 now. He's got 2 more years left. Let's say he stays until 34, right? If he wants to stay and he can provide you something off the bench, then you keep him around because of his finishing ability, which is not going to diminish. Maybe the physical characteristics might, although we saw blatantly on Saturday that his pace hasn't really gone. And so it's going to be up to him. But for Spurs, it feels as if like we are his club, right? It's been almost 10 years. Or is it 10 years now? No, next year will be 10 years. He is a Spurs legend, having scored the goals that he has. And I think he'll want to see it through. So I understand that we want to have, better players and we want to create the next great new Spurs team. But I don't think that Son will, he's always going to be part of the next Spurs squad. It's just a question of whether that's going to be good enough for him. But I don't see a perfect moment to move him on for big money. Those days are gone. So it's just a question of, how can we get the best out of him?
Yeah, but ultimately, HG, like the way you were saying how the team set up, what did you say? It was like a 2-7 something.
Yeah, 2-1-7. Basically, we had the 2 defenders, and then Basuma kind of sat, and everyone else. I mean, I say the fullbacks didn't really bomb forward too much, but it was a very attacking formation that we didn't necessarily have to worry about defending too much. There was that spell just before half time when Everton got a few corners, and we had a bit of a wobble, and you thought they're going to get one back here. But actually, that was pretty much it. We controlled them pretty well, and we were able to focus on moving the ball forward and trying to score.
Yeah, and with that formation, like what I was sort of coming to is like if you've got a Richarlison or probably a Solanke who's going to start, when you've got that much play on the ball in those games, you can sort of have him as like an inside left forward playing off Solanke, couldn't you? Do you know what I mean? So you, in theory, you've got like 2 strikers, if you get what I mean.
As long as he's not the one holding the ball up, he's great. I mean, that's just it. Like, I mean, the goal that Basuma scored came from Kulusevski basically having the ability to hold it up. I know he came from deep and beat a man, but still it's there. So if it's Richarlison, like home games against teams you can't score against, you might want to bring Richarlison on because he is more of that battering ram striker that will get his head on a ball. And in the Sheffield United game last year, where he came on and got the equaliser before Kulusevski got the winner, that's what he'll be. Solanke might be more for away games where we might be a bit under the cosh and we expect teams to be a bit more proactive going forward. But we do have options. I don't think it's going to be like Solanke is the guy for every game. We may well switch things around, but that's what good teams do. They don't play the same players in every game, and we have a lot of games before Christmas.
I mean, there was a lot of good performances in that first half, weren't there? I mean, like, I think Romero was a little bit sloppy in his passing, but like they didn't really, like you said, they had a couple of moments, but you're not getting behind that. Those Romero and Van der Ven. I mean, how good are they, mate? Like they're just like top drawing. Porro was like, I think we're starting to take Porro for granted because of how good a footballer he is. More minutes and you dog his legs, and he was good for the first half. So like the back 4 were decent, weren't they, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember Udogie doing too much in either direction. Like I think he was there, and he's still obviously building up his match fitness. So we don't need crazy runs, especially when you had Odobert in front of him who wants to get around the back. You don't need Udogie to make those runs at that point. But yeah, obviously they're very good signings. I mean, Romero's been here 3 seasons now. Porro's been here 18 months. Van der Ven 12 months. Those 3 will be together until Romero leaves, let's say. And it's going to be difficult for anyone to really get into the best Spurs 11 because they complement each other so well. I mean, it's not just that they're very good players. It's the fact that, one can do things that the other one can't. Like you trust Romero to kind of nip in and win the ball. You know that Van der Ven has the pace over the top to recover. Romero doesn't really have that, but he's a world-class defender, and to me, the best footballer at the club, Romero. So as much as he makes the odd clanger, the level of talent, the technique, the composure, the will to win, the mentality that he has, if we could bottle that, we'd be up at the top of the league guaranteed. So yeah, there's no complaints with our back four right now. I mean, if anything, you just expect them to get better.
Yeah, I mean, scary moment when Van der Ven went down. Looked like he'd really done himself, didn't he? But thank God he come back on. Thought they might have took him up at half time, but obviously kept him on, which was But I think the work was done in the first half, wasn't it? I mean, like we're talking about Romero, we finally scored from a corner, a great header from Romero, 3-0, game over, innit, mate?
Yeah,
I mean, I thought it 2-0. It was, they're going to struggle to get back into staying top.
As a Spurs fan at 2-0, you're always like, if they get one, they're going to get another, and that's the frustrating thing about being a Spurs fan. We've been burned too many times. But you're right, the third settled it. I mean, I don't feel as if Everton are ever really going to do what they need to do, but that doesn't mean I'm not nervous that it could happen, because that's always there. But yeah, I mean, second half we did take our foot off the gas a little bit. I don't remember too many chances before we got the third. It felt very like a training match a little bit, but it's minutes, and that's what the players need right now. Competitive minutes when you're winning comfortably are a blessing. They really are. You can bring on other players. Like I think we brought Richarlison on after like 65 minutes. So he got a good half an hour playing up top. And as I said, with all the games we have coming up, and it's like every midweek bar this one until Christmas, pretty much. Yeah, like we're going to have to rotate. We're going to have to use these the different characteristics for different games. So yeah, the third goal relaxed me, yes, but it was a great header. I mean, he's not the tallest, but he wins the ball cleanly, and the keeper's got no chance from, what is it, like 6 yards out, 8 yards out? He's basically on the goal line.
And it's like, but what you've got to look at, HG, and you feel a lot more comfortable with, like, Gray and Bergvall come on, both young kids. But when I look at them, obviously, we spoke about this before, and you're like, I'm not quite sure what Gray is, but what you can be sure with both of them is they look pretty comfortable at this level, don't they? The level we're playing at. I know we've not played anybody really good and they've been under the cosh, but they don't look. You don't look at them and think, there's certain players you can look at and you go, I ain't sure about that. He could do with beefing up a bit, or he's just not. But they both look pretty comfortable, in my opinion. I don't know what you think.
I mean, you said kind of my opinion. Like, I think Bergvall could play in any league. I just think the mentality is there that he gets on the pitch and he's playing a game with his mates. There is no levels with him. He just wants to play football. I think Archie Gray is perhaps a bit more reticent to kind of show what he can do. Wants to play it safe. And you're right. I don't really know what his best position for Spurs will be, but he's 18, and so if he gets half an hour a game for 2/3 of the season, that's pretty good development. We don't need him to be a first team regular, but we do need him to understand various roles in the side. He might come on and be a right back at various times. He might. I mean, I was really impressed with him at centre back. And I know those preseason games are not competitive, and so you can't tell much. But to me, he looks like a player that needs the game in front of him. I'm not sure if he's really as confident yet to play on the half turn as maybe some of the other players we have, which is okay because he's 18. He doesn't need to be world class at things right now. But I definitely feel like he's much more comfortable at this stage of his career with seeing the game in front of him. Whereas Bergvall, I think he's comfortable wherever. He just plays his natural game, and he's naturally incredibly talented. So to have both of them be 18, and they could easily grow together and be the central midfield partnership in 4 to 5 years' time. Like, we don't know, but right now we don't need to expect too much, I don't think, from then maybe 20 minutes as a substitute. They'll start the odd cup game or Europa game, and maybe against one of the, I don't want to say weak is the wrong word, but one of the lesser teams in the Premier League, they might get a chance to start. But again, at 18, if you're playing half hour a game for 30 games of the season, that's a fair chunk of minutes, and that will help their development.
Yeah, but the one good thing I think about you're saying we don't really know what Archie Gray is yet. He can play in various roles, but that means sometimes you can leave certain players on, can't you? You can actually tweak things to get him on if you need someone who's not having a good game or you just need to change it a bit. But I work with a young lad who's a Leeds fan.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me that Archie Gray's a right back. That's his best position. And I'm like, look, mate, he ain't getting in there over Porro at the minute. Oh, he's miles better than Porro. And I'm like, look, mate,
No.
he's not. He's not. I said he may be one day, but I said at this very minute that Porro is one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. He ain't getting in there. But this kid says to me that Archie Gray is a right back and he's a Leeds fan and he watches them. But
he spent most of his career professionally playing as a right back, so I guess he's more used to it. But you're right, like we have time to figure that out. And I'll be honest with you, I think Archie Gray knows where he's most comfortable and knows probably where his future might be. Like I sat here and was disgusted that Eric Dyer saw himself as a centre back when he came in 10 years ago as a defensive midfielder, and basically like he became the heartbeat of the side. A defender played in midfield, and we were so much better with him playing there. And then he was like, "No, I see myself as a centre back," and so I hope that I guess he agrees with me as to what his best position might be in the future. But the fact that he can play so many to a Premier League standard, even as just a squad player, is a massive blessing. We don't need him to be amazing. I know that loads of Spurs fans have wanted the first team to be, to be made better over the summer, and we wanted to get better players in, and we weren't really trying to, no one's excited about like lifting the floor of the side, right? Everyone wants to lift the ceiling. We want to get better here rather than to limit the losses, let's say. But Archie Gray does that. I mean, just as an 18-year-old, we know that he's capable in a couple of positions, even a few positions really, and he'll be reliable. And again, he doesn't have to be that world beater, but he will be a player that you can trust, which is what we need more than anything else. Because like the amount of minutes that Højbjerg got last year, when we all kind of knew that Ange didn't really want him around last summer, but he was useful, and Ange trusted him. He just wanted to move on from that. So yeah, it's a good time. But yeah, Graham Bergvall will play minutes against Newcastle, I'm sure, and they'll get minutes against Arsenal most likely. And it's about them to figure out like kind of where they stand at that level.
Yeah, and like obviously, like you said, you brought them on, and the game sort of petered out a bit then. But obviously, we go 4-0 up. Mickey van der Ven wins it, sort of on the edge of his box. Just iconic. That's people just going to remember that. Just like bursting up the pitch, laying it into Son, and Son finish it. I mean, that was beautiful, wasn't it, HG, to see that? Lovely to see them long legs, as Holly's put in the comments here, the Roadrunner, just pulling away from all their players.
Yeah,
Big beauty.
And the thing for me is that it wasn't all left foot. Like I know if I was trying to run forward at the fastest I can with the football, everything is going to be done with my strongest foot. Just is. I'm not even going to want to try and attempt to drag it along with my weaker foot. The fact that he is comfortable doing that is huge. And yeah, like part of me wanted him to try and slam it in the corner at the end of it. Like passing it off to Sonny was like, and it makes sense, but we're 3-0 up, have a go. But yeah, like, to have a defender that can do that, I've seen He Who Must Not Be Named has tried that a couple of times 25 years ago, but it's been a while. Like I don't think even Toby or Jan would even dream about running into space for 50, 60 yards before laying it off. So we've got a hell of a player, and he's not old. I mean, again, like there is always going to be a worry that we may not be able to build around them before they get better offers. But I want players like that, because we haven't had any for like 4 or 5 years, and we stagnated or we got worse because of it. Like we need talented players that play well, and if they get calls from richer clubs abroad, then so be it. But it will mean that Spurs have done well, and that's all that really matters.
But we'll come on to that later, probably slightly in the transfers, HG, about how we deal with that. But obviously, so 4-0, game's over.
Mm-hmm.
Everton, absolutely bobbins, mate, weren't they?
Yeah.
I thought they were poor, really poor. I mean, I didn't think Leicester were much caught, but Everton. So we'll celebrate a 1-0 win. Happy we've won. Always take a 4-0 win. Clean sheet. Son back on the score sheet. Basuma smashing one in from the edge of the box. But, mate, Everton, talk to me.
I mean, yeah, there are a huge amount of positives for Spurs. For Everton, we do have to consider that they're not very good, or that it's a really good time to play them. They've got all loads of injuries. They've got a couple of new signings that were on the bench that haven't really bedded in, and they're going to have a tough start to the season, like they tend to do, right? It's the second half of the season where they somehow pull it out. So to play them this early probably helped us. I did think they'd be better than what they showed, but yeah, I guess for Spurs, it was about building confidence. Like, yes, Everton weren't great, but it doesn't matter. I'm not here to really care about how good they are. I want to make sure that we understand what our job is and that we are improving, because, as we know, the next two games are not as easy on paper as the last two should have been.
Yeah, so I'm going to pose you a question now. You're better at answering these questions than I would be, so I'm going to put it to you now. So we've played two of what I call the worst teams in the league. I don't think you can argue with that.
No, I think that's fair.
And we're now going on to play. I know Newcastle aren't one of the best teams in the league, but they're one of the better teams in the league. And unfortunately, Arsenal are one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
So we've played the two bags of shit, and now we're on to the two better teams. Where do you think we'll find ourselves after that? Where do you think we'll find ourselves? Not we could. In your opinion, where do you think we'll find ourselves?
I mean, I think this next game is more key. Like, the Arsenal game is a law unto itself. No matter who might be better or worse, they never really go to form. Not guaranteed anyway. But the Newcastle game away, we tend to get thrashed there. Like last year, I think was probably one of the worst performances we saw from Spurs last season. The year before, I discount it because it was Stellini and Mason. Right, Conte had gone, and it was like their first game. So as much as that was a horrific defeat, it was 5-0 after 20 minutes or something stupid. Last year is the one that probably hurts a bit more, I think, for the players. And so we have to, Newcastle dominated us back in March or April. I think it was April. Yeah, we had a couple of injuries, but they were the better team from the first second, and they pressed us high, and we just couldn't deal with it. And they're going to do the same thing again. So for Spurs to have improved or to have learned anything, we have to find a way to deal with that. And I would hope that we will. It's not guaranteed, but clearly it's a much more difficult game than what we had against Everton. Yeah, I don't know where we'll be. Like I said at the start of the season, I thought we'd finish 6th. I know we've got a few days left before the end of the window and we do our prediction show. But right now, I see us as probably the 6th best team when you consider all the competitions and everything. Newcastle will be there or thereabouts. It's a massive game. And Spurs, like, if we don't lose it, then it feels like a victory. Because to play them at home is a different thing. But if we can go there and kind of banish a few memories and play well and actually look competitive against them, then we'll have done well. Like, I know losing 2-1 won't feel like a victory, but if we've played well, then we've got something from it. But we can't have what we had last year, where we went up there and it was men versus boys and they wiped the floor with us.
And you've got to tweak some at HG. I know this is what I do, mate. But obviously been up there 2 spankings. I know he's only been involved in 1. Really, in terms of games, it wasn't that far away, was it? I know it is in, terms of days and months, but in terms of games, it wasn't that long ago. So does Ange learn from those, learn from that disaster performance and sort of check? Do you think he will change anything, or what could he change?
I feel like it's tough. It all depends on let's say the stress of Newcastle's press. If Newcastle, if we play out from the back like we probably want to, and Newcastle there or thereabouts from the first second, then there's not much we can really do to change it apart from pump it long from Vicario, which we don't want to do, right? Like, if Solanke's not fit and Richarlison's probably not going to start, that would be a bold move to just hoof it forward and see what happens. But I do think that we've seen in the first couple of games a willingness from Spurs to actually play the ball over the top to keep the opponents a bit more honest. And as much as I don't think he's played well for 2 games, that's why Brennan Johnson's in the team. Like we saw the ball over the top for Maddison, one of the chances we had at the weekend. We have played balls over the top, and I feel like Spurs will have to do that a bit more against Newcastle just to keep them honest. Like, because we do have pace and we will be able to hurt them. And if the ball is played well, then that's going to be great. But if we just try to play, the centre halves to Bissouma, and then Bissouma goes to a doggy, and suddenly a doggy's got Longstaff on his heels, but we will struggle. I mean, like, Newcastle know what they're doing and they know how to press. So I do feel it might, Ange will have to adapt a little bit. But I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? Like, if we want to be the best, we don't have the best. I mean, I've said this before, but the best teams can dominate you with a style of play that they've played for a few seasons. Like, teams can't do that otherwise, right? So Man City took a couple of years before they really got going. Arsenal took a bit longer. Liverpool under Klopp took a couple of years before it was like, right, our football can overwhelm no matter who we play. Spurs aren't there. No. And I understand the logic of saying, well, I'm going to do it anyway, and we will come out the other side. But we don't have the players to do that. No. we are as strong as Newcastle. We are as strong as Chelsea. We don't have an advantage on the quality of players probably, and so we have to use tactics. And that's what those I feel like the best way. I mean, in German they say sub-top, which seems a bit harsh on Spurs. But those teams that aren't in the title race really, if they want to be in the title race, then they have to adapt. Yeah. That's it. Like, there are 3 teams that probably won't try to adapt, but the rest of us, we're capable of getting points against anyone, and so we do need to try something new. I do think that, and I like to think Ange sees that, but he's not going to come out and say that. He'll want to focus on Spurs being Spurs, but I hope that we'll see something different from Spurs.
So, from what you're telling me there, even if Solanke's back, you think he'll start Johnson, because obviously you're saying about keeping them honest, pushing them back, and that's the pace. Because obviously there's been a lot of people have been, not people have come over to our side, HG, but people are starting to see what we saw. And this is a serious conversation here. I'm not just trying to get people to argue in the chat, or I think it's people who watch this back when we were the cheese room, when we signed Johnson, we said, this is what this lad is. Just don't see it. We've signed it. We signed him. We've stuck to that. I don't think me and you have ever seen anything different. Like, when everybody was going off at him at the weekend, I think me and you were like, well, this is what he is. This is what we were telling you. This is what he is. So from what you're telling me, he starts again, doesn't he?
I think there is an argument to start him again, yes. Like, I think Ange is going to anyway, because he didn't really deserve to start against Everton, but he still did. And I do think a ball over the top is going to be useful. And if Solanke's fit, I think he's going to be the number 9 too, because this is the type of game where you're going to need someone who can hold the ball up and run the channels and be a threat. So we will see a few changes, but it's just going to be, we might say, okay, well, some will do the left and Solanke will be in the middle and Odegaard will be that pacey option down the right. I've seen a few tweets today from people saying that, why do people say that Brennan Johnson is fast? Well, he doesn't show it very often, but it's there.
He is.
That's the thing. It is there. And so if the ball over the top is right, he will get on the end of it. If he can time those runs correctly, we will be in. Do I trust him to find the back of the net? No. Do I think that he can find a person by playing it across the 6-yard box? Yes. That will be the usefulness, but it keeps that side of the pitch honest. Like Newcastle's defence, I think yesterday they had Lewis Hall at left back, who's also pretty young, and they had Dan Burn at left centre back, who is a good defender, but there's nothing really world class about him. He will struggle against pace. We know that, so we don't have to really fear Newcastle's defence, but it's like their tactics make them look better. Right, if they get the press right, then their defense doesn't have to worry. So there are things for Tottenham to kind of chip at and make Newcastle feel a bit more insecure. But I wouldn't be surprised if Johnson started. I think there is a logical argument in this game. I didn't think there was one for Everton, but I do think there is one for Newcastle.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. So, I mean, we won't talk about Arsenal. We'll leave the lad when it comes to it. We'll do a bigger thing about that. But yeah, big game coming up. As been said in the chat, I think King Hoddle will know more about Spurs after those two games, even the Newcastle one, than we've learned from Everton and Leicester. But a good week, 3 points. I did just want to mention this. I've left it in there. We never mentioned it earlier. R.I.P. to Sven-Göran Eriksson. Good bloke. Did a good job with England, really. Just, the golden generation, losses on penalties, but just a really good guy, HG, wasn't he? A really good footballing guy, inoffensive, charming, just such a shame.
It is. I mean, it's always a shame. Like 76 is not young. I mean, it's younger than you want to be probably, but it's just, when cancer comes like that, it's rough because it does eliminate you quite quickly at times. But Sven, like, I will always remember the night in Munich. The idea that England go to Germany and win 5-1 convincingly after being 1-0 down, I still don't really believe that happened. I mean, I was living in Holland watching that game and really thought that maybe England had turned a corner at that point. But I mean, this is going to sound really weird and I guess personal, but like Sven-Göran Eriksson was born on the same day as my dad, literally the very same day. And so I've always had this kind of like, oh, okay, that's what my dad should look like. Or like, it's just kind of weird to have someone who's famous, who you've seen in the game for 10, 15 years and know that he's exactly the same age. And so, yeah, it means that, like, it has meant for me that maybe I've been thinking about my own family a bit more today because my dad is still here. But I just, like, Sven was a football man and he did a lot of good for England, even though we weren't able to get past the quarterfinals with him. I think that the outpouring of love that we've seen today is a better kind of definition of who he was than just his football career per se.
Yeah, absolutely justified. And I've joined the England fans, so me and my lad and my brother-in-law will be going to Wembley for the next game, and I think they'll do a tribute to him, which I think everyone will be happy to do. But yeah, it is very sad. But R.I.P. Sven. Thanks for everything you've done for the country, mate. Top bloke. But got to move on, HG. So I thought for the last part of the show, transfer deadline day Friday, I'm not going to be involved in that show or whatever we do Friday, because Fridays is to be with your family. So I thought we'd have a little discussion now, what possibly could happen, what we need to happen, and how we feel about it. And obviously, this is what we've got coming up for Spurs. So bearing all that in mind, HG, first of all, how do you feel about the transfer business we've done so far? I'm thinking I like every single, I suppose we've got to include Werner in that. And I think we'll share the same opinion on that looks a very, very rash decision now. And the more I look at it, when I looked at it at the time and I thought what we're probably going to do, I thought, it won't be too bad. But I think the more and more I look at it now, I'm starting to think, what has gone on there? Why have we done that? But Bergvall was obviously from before, but very good. So we've got Archie Gray, Solanke, Odebear. Are they the only three we've made, HG?
The three like permanent ones.
Yeah, permanent ones.
Yeah, because Yang hasn't showed up yet.
Yeah, so Yang hasn't showed up
here right now.
So those three that are involved with the team now, I look at them and I think good signings, all of them. I think Solanke arguably is our starting number. Well, I say arguably, because we've got Son, but he will probably be our starting centre forward. That's what we wanted. Ange wanted him. The other two, even though Odebear was good at the weekend, I think the jury's out. I look at it like Spurs finished 5th last year. So I was looking at it with all the chat going on, thinking of the players I thought we were going to sign and who we were linked with, and about the big plan at Tottenham and how everything's data-driven. And I look at those signings, I think really good for the future of the club. And I look at it and I think, but I was looking at Spurs pushing on, trying to cement a top 4 place, really pushing on and looking at the other teams and going, look, we we've got first season under hands. We've learned what we're doing. Now we're taking it to the next level. And I'm not sure if that's what I got. I mean, I should know better by now. I should know better. But, all the talk of what we were sort of hearing, I don't think it's really happened. And I'm not slagging the transfer window off. Like I said, I think the players we brought in are decent. But that's sort of how I'm feeling at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you in the main about that. To me, it's a 7 out of 10 window when it comes to incomings, the players we've got in. Like, they're all quality players. I've no doubt about that. I'm concerned about when they're going to show that quality for Spurs. Like Solanke, you'd expect to come in and play. We play similar football to what they did in Bournemouth, so we're not asking him to do anything different. I think Bergvall looks like he belongs. Like, to me, if Bergvall, like, he could easily be a 10 out of 10 signing. One of those players who, that we found a superstar, right?
Yeah.
Like we plucked a superstar from a different league. They're young and they come in and they just take to the Premier League as if it's their natural home. Like, I really believe that Bergvall can be that guy, but right now he isn't. So we can only judge it on what we've seen. And we've got a couple of 3 18-year-olds, because Yang hasn't come in yet.
Yeah.
And Solanke and Odebear, who's 19. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's so, yes, I want to think that we're going to be much stronger than we were last season. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, but we will be a lot younger. And I suspect those players may well want to play Angie's style more than the ones that have left. So that's that's a good thing too. But yeah, you're right. Like, I don't think any of us sat here and thought, what we really need is Bournemouth's number 9. I don't think any of us thought, what we really need is Leeds' right back. Very good players, all of them, right? But it's just, are they really going to be good enough to help us improve? And like, as I said, right now, I don't think Spurs will finish higher than they did last year. That's not to say that the team won't be better. I just think that we are starting from this season now. Like, last season was a case of, like, this is what I've got to do with the players that I have. And this is the first year where 90%, 95% of the squad are people that Ange wants around and are people that want to be around. And so that does change things a little bit. But I want more. Like, I'm not going to be happy with 6th. I just think that with the amount of games, it will be a struggle. Like, we have to be very fortunate with injuries. We have to be lucky that rotation works in the way that we want it to, that we get those decisions right. And we don't know. But like this week, I mean, I think one of the guys says that Newcastle are playing on Wednesday night. That could help us because they do have an EFL Cup game against someone. I can't remember who. Whereas Spurs get the week off. Yeah.
Yeah. They got another Premier League team, have they?
They might do, actually. Yeah. I don't really remember. I have a feeling maybe Forest.
Yeah, and they'll want to win that.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's like for Newcastle, they probably got the draw that Spurs got last year. Like, the best team in the competition at this stage, and they've drawn a Premier League team away from home, which is exactly what Spurs did. So Newcastle, it's like they want to win because they think it's a good way to win a trophy. But if they don't win, then they've got all season to concentrate on the league, just like we did last year. Like, the FA Cup doesn't come around till January, so it's good for Spurs that they have the game. But yeah, I guess we'll see what will come out from it. If they lose, then they'll be really up for it on Sunday. You can't really think it's going to affect Sunday's game too much.
Yeah, but carrying on with we said we'd talk about transfers. I'm with you. I really wanted to see us push on, and I don't think we're any worse. I don't think the squad's probably better, but I don't think we'll finish higher than we did last season. I hate to say this, but people have been really giving Chelsea some stick because they've got so many players. Unfortunately, I think a lot of those players are fucking good players, and people just like overlook it because of the madness of the place. But bollocks to them anyway. I think I'd like to see us. I think we probably need a left-sided defender, HG, maybe someone who can play centre-back and left-back. A bit more dynamic than Davis, probably a bit younger. And I'm not saying I think there's a place for Davis in the squad. I really do. So it's not, but it's just to refresh that place and make it better.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I think most of us, average fans, think that Spence should be the replacement right back if Porro can't play, right? But we've all sat here and talked about Andy Gray, about Archie Gray being able to play right back. And so it may well be that we've decided that Spence is going to be that's going to be the position that he might play. He might be the reserve left back. I think Ben Davies is going to be the centre back, the reserve centre back this year. I don't think Spurs are going to go out and get a better one, because we've got Vuskovic coming next year. We've got Dorrington in the academy, who's pretty close. Like, there are others that long term could easily be part of our back four. Ashley Phillips is another, right, who is out on loan but will be back next year. So signing someone long term inhibits things a little bit. But if we can find someone to either on loan or whatever to play either of those roles, then I think it makes us a better squad. Like, Reguilón is almost certainly going to go. So I do think there will be a spot available, but it's just I would look for a left back more than a left centre back right now.
Yeah, fair dues. So that's fair enough. Like I'm saying, a left-sided defender of some sort, however they do it. However, like Ange wants that squad complemented. I was just about to say, we need a keeper. Like, I think whenever I've watched Austin and Whiteman, I always get them mixed up. I didn't watch the friendlies.
Yeah.
But one of them.
So if you didn't watch the friendlies, when have you seen them?
I've seen them play. Well, they've played in friendlies before, haven't they?
Oh,
Seasons
okay.
before. They must have been here. They must
All
have been playing for years and years. And do you know when you just look at someone and you think, just not really up to that standard? That's how I see them. And obviously, Fraser Forster is just like a great big lump of wood, isn't he? Now,
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? So I think that's fair enough. If we can get a young lad in, well, not really young, but a younger keeper who can actually do a bit what we want a keeper to do, we'll probably be in better shape.
I mean, there was a link a few days ago with some young Italian keeper.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, any keeper that we sign, if they're not club grown, which they won't be, then they won't be in the Europa League squad because we won't have space, right? We've got other players that will be in that before any new keeper comes in. And then I mean, I'm not even sure there's going to be a space for Fraser Forster in that Europa League squad, and we might have to go with Vicario and then someone like Austin, and then either Whiteman or Gunter or whoever the young keepers from the club are. So it is an issue if Vicario gets injured, and like I feel like goalkeeper injuries, like when they happen, they tend to be quite severe, but they don't happen super often. I mean, it's not a position that you would expect your keeper to get injured in. So it's rough because we might need a better keeper, but I don't know if they fit into the squad. At some point they would have to take someone's spot. And like, let's say if Reguilón goes and Lo Celso goes, and you decide to replace them with a left back and a keeper, I'd be like, okay, but it's still not. It's not ideal.
Yeah,
so it would be nice. Like, I think it would be nice to have. I mean, Austin's not going anywhere because he's got a 5-year deal. But if we did want to get a third keeper in, then for the Premier League, they'd have to be English. They'd have to count as homegrown. And like I don't really know how that's going to happen. But it's a tough one because we have the lack of club-grown players means that we have to make a few changes in the Europa League squad, and the fact that Gray and Bergvall don't count as under 21 in Europa means that they have to be in the main squad, which just limits the options. It limits the options we've got.
Okay, so obviously that's a decision they'll need to make. So we'll just move forward. Midfield HG. Can you see anything happening there? Anything you'd like to happen? I mean, there was talk, wasn't there, of wanting a more dynamic sort of number 8. We all were a lot of people were calling for a number 6 early in the transfer window, somebody to break up the play a bit more. And then we read things, coming from like articles from the Athletic and stuff saying that Spurs are so impressed with like Gray and Bergvall that they're not really looking at that anymore. So I'm like, if they're that impressed, why aren't they starting? They should be starting if we're that impressed. But can you see anything happening in there?
As I said, like with Reguilón and Lo Celso being the two that are most likely to not be in the squad, you've got 2 spots possibly available.
Yeah.
And then to me, it's a case of what characteristics do you think the squad is lacking? And maybe a second left back is one of them. Like, it's weird to me because I feel like Reguilon could probably be that person and do okay. He's a bit of a headless chicken, but he is already at the club. Obviously, we talked about Spence maybe doing it, but we don't have a tackling midfielder, which I think we need. I do think we need one. I mean, like, again, I don't expect these players to start every game. I don't think anyone should expect to start every game. If you want to be a really big club that fights on 4 fronts, then you will have games where Bergvall starts and Gray starts, and maybe they have Bentancur next to them, or you don't have Son, but you do have Solanke and you do have Kulusevski. Like, you got to get the mix right. But Spurs, we don't have players with certain characteristics, and I do think that a tackling midfielder is something that the squad needs. Even if we don't need him for games against Everton, we will need players like that. And the fact that we don't really have any means that we should at least have one specialist somehow. And again, doesn't have to be a permanent signing, can be a loan player just to give you that cover as and when you need it. But that's where I'd be looking.
The guy from Wolves looked ideal, didn't he? HG.
I mean, like, he's definitely a tackling midfielder. I saw a lot of people say that he was terrible against Chelsea. I didn't see much of the game, so I can't really say. But again, they're a different kind of team. Like, I've always said this, like, Van Dijk at Southampton was middling to good, but you put him in the Liverpool team and he looks like a world beater. And the difference was Liverpool played a way that suited his strengths and minimized his weaknesses, which were there, clearly.
Yeah.
If we have a tackling midfielder and we ask him to break up play against the better teams, and then pretty much that's it, then brilliant. We're not going to find the all singing, all dancing tackling midfielder, but we don't need that. We just need someone that is happy to be that type of player. Right now, I feel like we've got a bunch of 8s that can, but don't really want to. And we need more of a terrier in midfield who will say, no, my job is to make sure that if the ball gets past me, you don't.
Yeah.
But I'm going to win 85% of my tackles, and I'm going to make life difficult for you, and I'm going to be a pain in the butt. Because Spurs, I don't want to say we're soft, because we're not soft, but with that mentality that Romero has, I don't feel like there are many that share that, and we need to get a couple more in. I think that have that,
toughness.
You cannot get past me.
Yeah, I mean, just quick question from Jackie. We're talking about Maddison. Mm-hmm. Now, this seems really silly, but I don't know. We spoke about this before, but obviously people. We're talking about number 8s in attacking midfielders. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'd class him as an attacking midfielder anymore. I mean, I'm not saying he's rubbish, but I've not seen, and I know he was injured for a large chunk, but I've not seen the player at Spurs that I thought we were getting. Well, I've not seen that.
I mean, I feel like a lot of it is tactical. Like, Leicester, from memory, were very much a 4-2-3-1, and they had 1 or even 2 defensive midfielders, and basically said to Maddison, you can go anywhere you want between those wingers. You can find the pockets of space. You can move around. And at Spurs, he doesn't have that luxury. And so for him to find the space, it means he moves backwards, which I don't want him to do. That's the thing. Like, I think he wants to have the time that maybe he was used to having, but Spurs' tactics don't really afford him that if he plays further forward. But the flicks and tricks that he's got and the ability to work the ball in tight spaces means that it's a slightly different game he has to play, but it is a different kind of game.
Yeah.
And so I think as an AM, he's fine. I'd like to see him shoot more from distance. I'd like to see him in the box more. I feel like he almost plays where Udogie should be and lets the doggy make the runs forward. And I don't want him standing next to Van der Ven getting the ball. That's not where I want Maddison. Against Leicester, obviously the goal came from him dropping deep and crossing the ball in. That's fine. But against Everton, we saw that less. There was the chance early on that Johnson headed wide. That was more of Maddison of old. But we just have we encourage Udogie to play where Maddison wants to play, and that makes it difficult for him. So I'm not blaming Maddison, but I think that he does have to adapt a little bit. We're not going to see the Maddison of Leicester because we don't play like Leicester.
Yeah, fair enough. And so then obviously last part in the attacking areas, I'd like to see a right winger come in. I don't think that's going to happen. What really?
No.
Are you the same there, HG? Because we're not going to bring another centre forward in, are we? We're not going to bring another left winger in now. We've sort of got Son, Odegaard, and Werner.
We've got a flexible front line where a bunch of those players can play in a couple of positions. I feel like even Johnson can play down the left if you need it.
Yeah.
To me, it's more characteristics. Like we've got a lot of speedsters, but that's not always enough. Like we need to have something different. So in a perfect world, we'd have someone who could cross a ball as part of those wingers. We don't know if they can yet, but we've had someone in Perisic who could, and I miss that. Someone that you could trust to get the ball into a decent area and let the attackers attack it. It feels as if that's a kind of, what do they say, like a trick to our bow. That's not the right phrase.
String to our bow.
String to our bow. Thank you. That we don't have, and I wish we did. But I think with the players that we have, there's no space now. Like with Moore as well, that he'll want to get some minutes somewhere, probably in the Europa if possible. But Werner can play both sides. Son can play both sides. Odegaard can play both sides. Son can play down the middle. Like we're not lacking for options. So I don't, as much as I feel like characteristics are missing, we just don't have the space to get those players in.
Would Chiesa have been a good addition, in your opinion? I'm only talking about because he's now, we were linked with him.
Yeah.
There's never really anything that strong, but like Liverpool are looking at him now.
I think he's a great player. I mean, I think he's more like Jared Bowen than he is like a proper winger. Like he wants to cut inside and shoot, but he can cross and he can use both feet. And he's played at the top for a number of years. He won the Euros with Italy. Like he's a quality player that wants an awful lot of money, and that's the problem. He hasn't cost a lot, but as a player, yes, I would like him. I mean, obviously, I'd have him over Werner. If that's the choice,
you'd even have Sterling over Werner, wouldn't you? Come on, mate. You know that.
I don't like Sterling.
I mean,
don't
like Werner either.
No, I don't, and I agree that signing him when we did was stupid. Like if he was homegrown, fair enough, but to take up a foreign spot, that seemed a bit premature to do it in late May or whenever it was.
Yeah.
But it's done now. So Chiesa is a great player that would probably have done pretty well at Spurs, but it would have meant Werner not signing. It probably would have meant selling someone else. We bought Yang as well, remember? So he'll come in and play minutes down the wing. It's it feels like it wasn't a deal that Spurs were really pursuing, which is fair enough, but he's a great player.
So we've got this flexible front line. You think the midfield needs a tackler.
Yeah.
You'd like to see a left back come in.
Yeah.
When it gets to, what time is it shut on?
I think 11 o'clock UK time. So, yeah.
11:05 Friday night HG. From now to that point, is our squad going to be any different? Not outgoings, not this we've had a 10 out of 10 outgoing window. This is what it was all about this year, clearing the decks and getting rid of all the deadwood. We've been getting rid of deadwood since I was 12. So, I'm talking about making this squad better. 11:05 Friday night, what we got?
Look, I think there's a very good chance that people like Lo Celso and Reguilón will have their contracts paid up. If there aren't any clubs that are really in for them, even on loan, I think Spurs, if they're looking to do anything permanent, it will be one of those loan to buy deals where we can spread the money starting next summer or whatever. Like we pay a loan fee now, but you pay the full fee next summer or whenever it could be. That's what Spurs will be looking for. Whether teams will want to do that with us is a different question. But I do think there are players out there that play at, let's say, lower level clubs in big leagues that will jump at the chance to be a squad player at Spurs. And if they're young, then great. And Spurs may well have those deals lined up, and it will depend on what happens with Reguilón and Lo Celso. it sounds weird. We don't want to be one in, one out, but squad wise, we kind of have to be. And Lo Celso might have a role to play because Ange has played him, although it's always been last chance option.
Yeah.
But Reguilon, I think, will go. So
Yeah.
there needs to be someone coming in to replace that, and I think a left back would make sense. But so I think we'll do something, but I don't expect fireworks. It will be a very mundane.
Opportunity.
An opportunity, and that sounds negative.
No, but we always troll that line out around now, don't we? When we're thinking, might not do anything, we might explore some opportunities.
But football will have shown us that one man's junk is another man's treasure. There will be a player out there that isn't wanted. I mean, not just at Chelsea where they don't want half the squad. But there will be players out there that maybe Spurs think, for a year, let's give it a whirl. I mean, if we do it for Werner, who's costing 165 grand a week, then there are other players we'll do it for, surely.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. So, positive week on the pitch. Busy week. Well, busy weeks coming up now for Spurs. Just a little bit of housekeeping, everyone. Look, check our page out on Twitter. Please go and give us a like. We're trying to build that back up. Thanks for coming in and watching us again. We're up to 62 now. And that's brilliant. We've been away for a while, so we're trying to earn all your trust back and get back on. So we're back on for HG. You're back Friday, aren't you?
I would imagine so, yeah. I've got nothing on this week.
I think, obviously, Caller will be hosting. He only does Friday nights because he's allowed to have a drink on a Friday night. So he does Fridays. And I'm sure we've got some other people on. But
it's my last week off. I'm back to work next Monday after 9 weeks of summer bliss.
What, back on the old 6 till 2 shift, HG?
Next year it's only 4 days a week. But
yeah,
I'll have Mondays off to recover from all those Europa League, the Premier League defeats after Europa League game. But I'm excited to be back. But it does feel like, oh, really? Okay.
But the beauty is, what we can say to all these people, isn't it, HG? The more games we've got, likelihood is me and you will be coming on.
Yeah.
The brains in the bullshit after games again, mate. To have instant reaction to matches.
We only had 5 days between Leicester and Everton, and I was pulling my hair out. We've got Sunday when we played Newcastle. It's just too long between games.
Yeah.
I need football as much as it can be up and down. I think there'll
Midweek
be quite a few ups.
Great, mate.
Midweek floodlight football is the best.
Yeah.
That is true.
Cup games. Let's win a cup. We can win a cup this year, can't we, HG?
It is always possible, yes.
Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. HG, thanks for joining, mate. And,
no problem. I enjoyed it.
Because we're still in the infancy. We haven't got a outro as we used to have. So all I'll say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Yeah.